My selfish daughter forbade me from attending her wedding. After I warned her about a major red flag, so I canceled the card she was using. I never imagined I'd find myself in this situation. My daughter excluded me from her wedding for pointing out glaring concerns about her fiancé, so I cut off her access to my credit card. Now she's stuck in a situation she can't escape. After my ex-wife and I separated, I did everything I could to ensure my daughter Claire had the life she deserved. She was just 12 when Stephanie and I went our separate ways. Though the divorce was amicable, it still left an emotional mark on Claire. Stephanie remarried less than a year later and quickly had 3 more children. First came a baby girl, then a pair of twin boys. While Stephanie dove headfirst into her new life, Claire was left behind, feeling like an outsider. At first, I didn't grasp how deeply it affected her. I assumed she simply needed time to adjust. But as months passed, I started to realize that Claire felt pushed out, as though she'd been replaced in her mother's life. To make matters worse, Stephanie didn't do much to hide her new priorities. Her focus was firmly on her new children, leaving Claire to navigate her feelings alone. I knew I had to fill in the gaps. I committed myself to being her anchor. I picked up extra shifts to make sure she had what she needed. I never missed a game, a school conference, or any milestone. My goal was to be the person she could depend on, the one constant in her life. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I wonder if I went too far. Maybe I sheltered her too much, gave too freely, and never taught her how to stand independently. Things began to unravel when Claire decided to take a 2-year break from high school. She claimed she needed time to discover herself. I wasn't thrilled, but chose to support her. Not every teenager follows the same path, right? Some take longer to figure things out. That's what I told myself. But instead of using the time for self-discovery or personal growth, Claire ended up lounging around, watching TV, scrolling endlessly on her phone, and spending time with friends I didn't trust. These weren't the kind of people who would inspire her to do better. They were just as aimless as she was becoming. I tried initiating conversations with her, but every talk spiraled into a fight. Any suggestion that she might need to refocus would cause her to lash out. She'd accuse me of not being supportive or not understanding her. I felt like I was constantly treading carefully, trying to be supportive while gently guiding her toward a better direction. The final straw came when I caught her trying to sneak out late one night after I'd gone to bed. I found her halfway out her bedroom window, and when I confronted her, she yelled at me like I was some kind of villain. She couldn't see that I was looking out for her. She only saw someone standing in her way. That night, I sat down and started questioning everything. Had I gone too easy on her? Given her too much space? Or was it out of my hands? Maybe a result of the divorce, or how her mother had left her feeling forgotten? I was desperate to help, so I turned to therapy. Claire agreed to see a counselor, and for a little while, it actually seemed promising. She appeared calmer, more open about her feelings. But as soon as the sessions got tough, she quit. Over and over. This pattern repeated for years, starting therapy, quitting when it got uncomfortable, acting out, then starting again. I tried everything else I could think of, too. Long heart-to-hearts, family vacations, even trying to motivate her with gifts. I bought her the newest tech, hoping it might reignite interest in school or sports. I planned getaways, thinking maybe a change of scenery could help shift her perspective. None of it worked. Eventually, after 2 exhausting years, Claire finally agreed to return to school. I was relieved. More than relieved, I was thrilled. I thought we were finally moving forward. I truly believed she was ready to take life more seriously and carve out a real future. For the first time in years, I felt all the worry and effort had finally paid off. But that joy didn't last. Barely 6 months after re-enrolling, Claire met Jake. Jake was 26 and worked delivering baked goods for his family's small business. He had left school after the 9th grade and had been coasting through life ever since. His idea of ambition was going with the flow. At first, I tried not to judge. A job is a job, and not everyone is meant for college. But as things between them progressed, I started noticing red flags. Jake wasn't just directionless. He was careless. He'd been married once before at age 21, and that marriage fizzled out in 6 months. They split because it just didn't work out. It didn't take a genius to see this man wasn't ready for a serious relationship, let alone a marriage, but Claire saw none of that. To her, Jake was everything. He was amusing, affectionate, and made her feel valued in a way she hadn't experienced in a long time. I wanted to be supportive. I hoped I could trust her instincts, but every aspect of their relationship set off alarm bells in my mind. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, Claire announced they were getting married. It wasn't a discussion. She didn't ask for advice. It was a done deal. The date was already chosen, the planning underway, and I'd heard nothing about it beforehand. When I tried to open a conversation, she shut me down. "You're just upset because I'm happy," she said. I was speechless. How do you argue with someone who's blinded by infatuation? How do you convince your daughter she's making a mistake when she's certain she's right? That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the walls, trying to figure out where I'd failed. I replayed all the moments I'd sacrificed for Claire, every time I'd put her first, every effort I'd made to be a solid parent. And now, all I could do was watch her barrel toward a disaster, completely helpless. It hit me hard. No matter how much you love your child, you can't shield them from the consequences of their own choices. When Claire told me she was getting married, it felt like a blow to the chest. She didn't sit me down or ask for guidance. She just brought it up casually over dinner, like she was telling me her weekend plans. Jake and I are tying the knot next month, she said with a grin, like she'd just revealed the best news ever. I honestly thought she was joking. What do you mean, married? I asked, hoping I'd misunderstood her. We're in love, she said with a shrug. We've already picked the date and everything. I sat there, stunned. My 19-year-old daughter, who hadn't completed high school and didn't have a job, was planning to marry a guy she'd known for just a few months. A guy with no direction, no savings, and no real plan for the future. Claire, don't you think this is happening too fast? I asked as calmly as I could. Marriage is a serious commitment. Have you really thought this through? She rolled her eyes. Dad, you always overanalyze everything. Jake and I are meant to be together. She made it clear that she didn't need or want my blessing. That stung. I'd always been the one she could count on, the one who supported her unconditionally. Now she was telling me that my opinion didn't count. I tried to reason with her again. Claire, you're still young. You have so much time ahead of you. Why not focus on school and your goals first? Marriage can wait. Her tone turned icy. You're just being negative, she said. I knew you wouldn't support me. That's when it really sank in. This wasn't some rebellious phase. She genuinely believed she was doing the right thing, and no matter how I tried to approach it, she wouldn't hear me. Over the next few days, I tried multiple times to talk it out, but every conversation led to more tension. I brought up practical questions, how they'd handle finances, where they'd live, how they'd pay bills. Do you even have a plan? I asked. Have you talked about rent, utilities? She waved it off like it was irrelevant. We'll figure it out, she said. All we need is love. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Claire, love matters, but it won't keep the lights on or put food on the table. Marriage is about responsibility too. She rolled her eyes again. You're so old-fashioned, Dad. You just don't get it. I wanted to scream. How could she be so blind to the obvious risks? How could she not see the storm she was walking into? I decided I needed to meet Jake myself. Maybe, just maybe I could get through to him. We agreed to meet at a diner nearby, and I made an effort to keep an open mind. At first glance, Jake came across as pleasant enough, polite, friendly, even slightly charismatic. But the more we talked, the clearer it became that he had no real grasp of what he was committing to. So, what's your long-term plan? I asked, trying to keep my tone level. He shrugged. We'll just figure it out as we go. I clenched my jaw, holding back my frustration. Marriage isn't something you can wing. It demands structure and thought. Do you have any savings? A budget? Any goals for the future? He nodded along, pretending to listen, but it was obvious his mind was elsewhere. I tried switching angles. Claire's still finishing school. She doesn't have a job yet. Are you in a position to support her financially while she finds her footing? He responded with a line that made my heart sink. We'll manage. Love matters more than money. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't going to work. Jake didn't seem malicious, but he was completely out of his depth. And Claire, who was already struggling to stabilize her own life, was diving into a situation that would likely make things even harder. That night, I sat down with Claire again. I calmly explained all my concerns and asked her to reconsider. Claire, I'm not trying to run your life, I said. I just want to see you succeed. Can't you see this isn't the right time? You have so much potential. Why not focus on that first? Her response was chilling. If you're not going to support me, then don't come to the wedding. Her words hit like a slap. Claire, you don't mean that, I said softly. I do, she replied coldly. You're not invited. If you're just going to bring negativity, I don't want you there ruining my day. I was stunned. My own daughter was barring me from her wedding because I didn't agree with her choice. That night, I made up my mind. If she didn't want me at her wedding, I wasn't going to fund it either. She had been using the credit card I gave her for emergencies to pay for the entire event. The next morning, I canceled the card. It didn't take her long to notice. Within a few hours, my phone was flooded with angry calls and texts. You've ruined everything, she screamed over the phone. How could you do this to me? I took a steady breath. Claire, if you're old enough to make adult decisions, you're old enough to deal with adult consequences. You said you didn't want me at your wedding, so I'm not paying for it. Just as I expected, she fired back with every insult she could muster, calling me selfish, manipulative, heartless. She said I didn't care about her happiness and accused me of trying to sabotage her life. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel guilty. I loved Claire more than anything, but I couldn't keep encouraging her bad choices. If she wanted to act like an adult, she needed to understand what that meant. As painful as it was, I knew I'd done the right thing. After I canceled Claire's access to the credit card, I braced myself for the fallout. I didn't want to push things to that point, but I wasn't going to finance a wedding I was deliberately excluded from. That was my boundary. If I wasn't invited, neither was my money. Claire didn't take it well. She burst into the house that evening, her face flushed with anger. "How could you do this to me, Dad?" she shouted the second she walked in. I didn't back down. "Claire, I've supported you every step of the way. I've been by your side even when it was hard. But I'm not going to pay for a wedding I've been kicked out of. That's not how this works." "You're just being selfish," she screamed. "You don't care about my happiness. You just want control over me." Her words hurt, but I stayed firm. "No, Claire, I care deeply about your future. That's why I'm saying no. If you're making adult choices, then you have to deal with adult responsibilities." She stormed off to her room, slamming the door. For days, we barely spoke. She'd only come out when necessary, keeping her distance. The air in the house felt heavy. Still, I held my ground. I decided it was time to bring in someone who might reach her in a way I no longer could, my mother, Evelyn. Claire and her grandma had always been close, and I hoped maybe she'd have better luck. My mom is tough, practical, and doesn't mince words. When I told her what was happening, she sighed and said, "She's just like her mother, stubborn and too proud to admit she's wrong. But I'll talk to her." We arranged a family sit-down with my mom leading the conversation. Claire sat with her arms folded, clearly defensive. My mom didn't waste any time. "Claire, marriage isn't just about feelings," she said. "It's about maturity, commitment, and a solid plan. Have you and Jake actually thought this through? Do you even have savings or a plan for how to live?" Claire rolled her eyes. "We'll figure it out, Grandma. Things are different now." My mom's face tightened. "Things might be different, but the basics haven't changed. Love doesn't pay bills. It doesn't put food on the table or keep a roof over your head." She shared stories about her own early struggles with my dad, how hard they had to work to stay afloat. "Marriage is tough, Claire. It's not a fairy tale. If you're not ready to do the work, it'll fall apart." Claire's reply was cold. "You don't understand. Jake and I know what we're doing." My mom stood up and said, "Then you'll just have to learn the hard way." She walked out, frustrated and disappointed. I could see the worry in her eyes. As much as I wanted Claire to come to her senses, I had a sinking feeling she wouldn't. Eventually, she and Jake went ahead with the wedding. When she came home that day, she slammed the door. "We took out a loan," she said, defiant. "You thought you could stop this? Well, you didn't." I was stunned. "Claire, you got a loan? Do you even realize what that means? You're starting your life already in debt." "Don't act like you care," she snapped. "You abandoned me." "No, Claire," I said calmly. "You shut me out. Don't twist this." She rolled her eyes and slammed her door again. A week later, the wedding happened. I wasn't invited, but my neighbor Lily, whose daughter had attended, gave me the rundown. "It was okay," she told me. "They had flowers and a live band, but it looked rushed. Jake's parents didn't seem happy at all." That didn't comfort me. I had hoped they'd talk some sense into him, but clearly they had no more sway than I did. While Claire walked down the aisle, I sat alone in the living room thinking about everything we'd lost. I'd always imagined giving her away on her wedding day, but instead, I was completely shut out. Before she left for the ceremony, I left a small note in her room, just a few words wishing her well, even if I didn't support her choices. No matter what happened, she was still my daughter. Months passed. Claire and Jake moved into a tiny apartment. She didn't visit, call, or text. I figured she needed time to face reality, and I refused to bail her out again. Then, one evening, there was a knock at the door. It was Jake. He looked exhausted. "Can we talk?" he asked. I let him in. He sat down, rubbing his hands together. "We're drowning. Loan payments, rent, we're behind on everything. Claire's been applying for jobs, but..." I already knew the rest. She didn't have a diploma or experience, and probably wasn't taking just anything that came her way. "Would you be willing to help us out, just until we catch up?" he asked. I looked him in the eye. When you both said love was all you needed, you were sure I was wrong. Do you still believe that? He looked down. I was wrong. I'm sorry you're struggling, I said, but this is yours to fix. Claire said she didn't want me in her life. I'm honoring that. He stood up slowly, defeated. I understand. Thanks anyway. That night, Claire called, enraged. How could you humiliate Jake like that? He came to you for help. Claire, you told me to stay out of your life. Now that things aren't going as planned, you want help? You're heartless, she yelled. I love you, Claire, but this is adulthood. It's not a fairy tale, it's responsibility. She hung up. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. Weeks passed. Then late one night, Claire texted me frantically. Are you up? I need to talk. I don't know what to do. I called her instantly. What's going on? Her voice trembled. I think I might be pregnant. I froze. Are you sure? No, she whispered. But I'm late, and I feel it. Dad, we can't afford this. We're barely staying afloat. As much as I wanted to remind her this was her doing, I couldn't. Let's take it one step at a time, I said. I'll set up an appointment for you tomorrow. She was nervous the whole ride. At the clinic, I waited in the car. 30 minutes later, she returned quietly. They want me to wait a week and take another test, she mumbled. The week dragged. She barely slept, constantly texting me. For the first time in a long time, she actually wanted me around. At one point, she asked, Dad, do you think you could give Jake a job at your company, just for a little while? I own a small creative agency. Jake didn't have the skills, and frankly, I didn't think he'd try to learn. We'll talk after the test, I said. You're just making excuses, she snapped. Why can't you help for once? Claire, I said firmly, I won't act without knowing the facts. Let's take this one step at a time. Thankfully, the test came back negative. I hoped that would humble her. Instead, she turned bitter again. You still wouldn't give Jake a job. What kind of father are you? I sighed. I've always tried to help you, but you pushed me away. You can't have it both ways. She glared. Everything you have will be mine one day anyway. The least you could do is show you care. I was floored. Nothing's guaranteed, Claire. What I leave behind is my choice. I might retire early, travel, remarry. That future isn't promised to you. You're selfish, she spat. You don't care about anyone but yourself. I didn't argue. It wouldn't matter. The silence between us grew. I considered caving, sending money, offering Jake a job. But I knew that would only prolong the lesson. Then, my ex-wife called. How could you let Claire suffer like this? She demanded. She's your daughter. Stephanie, I've been helping Claire for years. This isn't about me. She made her choice. You're ruining her life, she snapped. Claire is in control of her life. If she wants change, she has to take responsibility. She hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time. Every day, I hope Claire will realize that everything I did was out of love. But until then, I wait. Because being a parent means loving your child, even when they make it really, really hard. If you enjoyed this story and felt the emotions behind it, don't forget to give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories videos.